Hey there, welcome back. Or if it's your first time here, I'm really glad you stopped by. Tonight, I've got something a little special for you. An entire hour of stories about some of the most entitled people you'll ever hear about. These are the kinds of folks who make you shake your head, but also kind of make you glad you're not dealing with them yourself. So whether you're drifting off, unwinding from a long day, or just need something chill to keep you company, you're in the right place. Get comfy. Close your eyes if you'd like. Let's get into it.
Story 1. My roommate said I was financially abusing her because I wouldn't cover her half of the rent. I live with a roommate who's in between jobs, like, all the time. We're supposed to split rent 50-50. I pay mine. She mostly makes excuses. This month she said she couldn't pay and asked if I could just cover it, and she'd pay me back eventually. I told her I couldn't. Not mad or anything, just honest. I'm not exactly swimming in cash either. A few hours later, she said I was financially abusing her, that I was stressing her out on purpose, said I was toxic for caring more about bills than her mental health. I said rent's still due on the 1st, no matter how she feels about it. She hasn't said a word to me since, just keeps posting stuff like, being broke doesn't mean you don't deserve love. So yeah, I guess I'm the villain now for paying my half. Story 2, titled, Audience member insisted that I turn off my stand light. I've enjoyed many posts in this group, so I thought it was time to share one of my own encounters with an entitled person. I play guitar and bass in pit orchestras for local theatrical productions. Several years ago, I was performing in a Christmas show featuring 1960s holiday songs. For this particular production, the instrumental ensemble was located on stage, in full view of the audience. One night, just moments before the show began, I had taken my place on stage and was checking that my guitar was in tune. That's when a lady from the audience actually walked up onto the stage and told me to turn off the light on my music stand because she found it distracting. I explained that I needed the stand light in order to see my sheet music, especially with the different lighting changes during the performance, but she doubled down. She insisted that I either turn off the light or move to another part of the stage where she wouldn't have to see it. I calmly told her that the positioning of the ensemble was set based on the scenery and choreography, so moving to a different part of the stage just wasn't an option. Since it was a general admission venue and the audience was only about half full that night, I suggested she choose a different seat, one where the light wouldn't bother her line of sight. Her response? She had the center seat in the front row, and she had no intention of moving. Then she asked to speak to the theater manager. At the time, I was the president of the board of directors for that theater company, so I let her know she was already speaking to the highest person on the org chart. She went back to her seat and proceeded to dramatically hold up her program to shield her eyes from the offense of my stand light. Looking back, I'd like to say I resisted the urge at intermission to swap out my low-wattage blue bulb for a brighter, unfrosted LED bulb, but I did not resist that temptation. Story 3. Entitled Neighbor demands I stop using my own Wi-Fi because it's distracting her plants. Yes, you read that correctly. I live in a townhouse complex with paper-thin walls and a whole cast of colorful personalities. One of them is my neighbor, a woman in her late 50s who wears tie-dye every day, swears she has a telepathic bond with crystals, and once told me my aura was too digital. I usually sit out front with my phone or computer, just relaxing. Maybe that's what she meant by digital aura, but her latest stunt really took the cake. Last week, she knocked on my door holding a potted plant in one hand and a printout in the other that looked like a hand-drawn diagram of a Wi-Fi signal. She told me we needed to talk about my router. I was confused. Then she explained that my Wi-Fi was disrupting the vibrational energy of her succulents. She pointed to the drawing, which honestly looked like a sad jellyfish, and said the signal beamed directly through our shared wall and was bombarding her plants. According to her, the plants were spiritually wilting because they thought the Wi-Fi was sunlight, but it wasn't. And the kicker? Her plants were in a dark hallway with no natural light. She claimed they had been thriving until I got a new modem. Then she gave me 2 options. Either turn off my Wi-Fi every night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., plant rest hours apparently, or let her share my Wi-Fi and move the router into her unit so she could regulate the signal properly. I laughed, because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She stormed off as I laughed, and I'm still just waiting to see what comes next. Story 4, entitled, Neighbor Demands I Move My Garden Because Her Dog Doesn't Like It. I've spent the last 2 years turning a patchy, neglected corner of my yard into a small but thriving vegetable garden. It's not huge, maybe 10 by 10 feet, but I've got tomatoes, peppers, herbs, even some strawberries growing. It's my happy place. Then came Linda. She's a new neighbor who moved in about a month ago. We'd only exchanged a polite hi once or twice. Last Saturday, she showed up at my door with her off-leash golden retriever standing beside her. She starts with, "Hi, I need you to do something about your garden, please." I asked what she meant. She says, "Yeah, my dog doesn't like it. Every time he looks at it, he starts barking like crazy. He doesn't do that anywhere else. I think it's the smell of your compost. Or maybe just the way it looks, whatever. Can you move it back a little so it's more hidden and he doesn't see it?" I was shocked, but I stayed polite. I said, "Well, he'll get used to it?" Linda, completely serious, "No, I need you to move it. Maybe to that back corner where it's more hidden." I just stood there for a second, trying to process if I'd really heard that right. Then I said, "I'm not going to move my garden because your dog barks at it. Find a way to manage your dog." She goes, "The barking makes everything so uncomfortable. He barks really loudly because of your garden, and it's going to inconvenience other neighbors. Or do you want to cause problems in the neighborhood?" A few days later, I found out from another neighbor that they had confronted her about her dog's constant barking. And guess what she told them? She said I was the cause, that I refused to cooperate. So, apparently, my tomatoes are now the local menace. Story 5, entitled, Woman Wants My Takeout Order Because She's in a Hurry. I stopped by a local Thai place to pick up a takeout order I'd called in about 25 minutes earlier. I get there, give my name, and the guy at the counter says, "Yep, just finishing it up. It'll be out in a minute. No problem." Then this woman, who came in after me, marches up to the counter and says loudly, "I need that order. I'm in a rush." The cashier calmly tells her, "Sorry, it's already taken." She turns, points at me, and goes, "He looks like he can wait. I've got kids in the car." I kind of laugh, thinking it's a joke. It's not. She looks at me and says, "Come on, be kind. Just let me take your food. You can wait for the next one." I say, "Ma'am, I ordered this 30 minutes ago, and I'm taking it home to my family too." Then she actually tries to walk behind the counter to grab the bag that just came up. The cashier has to physically block her and says, "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you don't calm down." She storms out, muttering about how selfish people are, and how this is why the world's falling apart. I was just standing there thinking, world is falling apart? Over Thai takeout? Story 6. Neighbors. Sending their relatives to use my pool. Without my consent, for those saying, "Just call the police," read the whole post. The trespassers did get arrested and dealt with, so the front of my driveway has a sign that reads, "Private property, no trespassing." It's right there as you pull in. I've also got a fence around my pool to keep out animals and unwanted visitors. The only way in is by unlocking the gate with a key. I have security cameras around the house, some pointed right at the pool. Last summer, while I was away, I got an alert from my security camera. When I checked the live feed, I saw 3 early teens and 1 adult trying to climb the fence into my pool. Now I keep a tarp over the pool at all times, and it can only be removed by a switch inside the house. You'd think they'd see the tarp and leave, right? Nope. I immediately called the police. They said they'd take care of it. And sure enough, the 4 didn't even try to leave. They kept trying to scale the fence until I watched all 4 of them get arrested. The day I got back, my neighbor, who must have been watching for my car, stormed over and started screaming at me. My sister and her kids are going to have a criminal record now because of you, I said. So that's who my camera's caught. You should know the sign in front of my house says private property, no trespassing. She shot back that she'd see me in court when their court dates came up. At the hearing, the sister tried to argue it was a hot day and the kids just wanted to cool off. She said her sister, my neighbor, insisted they use my pool, and told them to ignore the sign because apparently she and I are good friends. Spoiler, we are not good friends. I told the judge I never gave anyone permission to use my pool while I was away. The court reviewed all the evidence, including video footage and the clearly posted signage, and found both the neighbor and her sister guilty of second-degree trespassing, which in my state carries a $200 fine and 20 days in jail. The two nephews and niece were found guilty too. My lawyer also requested a restraining order, which the judge granted. The teen's attorney tried to argue they didn't know about the sign on my driveway, but the judge wasn't having it, since they willingly listened to their mom and aunt's instructions to trespass. So yeah, apparently, guarding my own pool now makes me the villain in my neighbor's eyes. Story 7. Anew to me. Way for a squatter to grab my aisle. Seat I've been flying for decades, but this one was a new one for me. I was traveling with my 80-year-old brother. He needs wheelchairs and a bit of help during flights, so I made sure to book us 2 aisle seats, directly across from each other. The flight was completely full. We boarded, and I found a man sitting in my aisle seat. He tried to claim that seat AX was the aisle seat, and that mine was actually the window. Now, I've been flying on American Airlines for years, and on a 3-make-3 seating layout. C and D are the aisles. A and F are the windows. I politely tried to explain that to him, but he insisted I was wrong, and he was right. I didn't argue. I just got the flight attendant and asked her to explain the seating system to him. She did. And then he tried to argue with her that the airline had booked him with the wrong seat. Eventually, he took his actual window seat, grumbling the whole time. And I sat in my assigned aisle seat. I'll give the guy an A for originality. But when it comes to entitled seat squatters like this, the only way to handle it is to be polite, firm, and call in the flight attendant when needed. Story 8, entitled, Neighbor Demands I Stop Cooking Because the Smell Offends Her Dog. So I live in a small apartment complex. I like to cook spicy food. Nothing too wild, just garlic, chili, cumin, that kind of thing. Last week I was making shakshuka, and suddenly there's a knock on my door. It's my neighbor from 2 doors down, and she looks pissed. She goes, "Can you not?" I'm like, "Not what?" She says, "Cook that, whatever it is. It's offensive." I laugh nervously and say, "It's eggs and tomatoes." She goes, "My dog has a sensitive nose. He was shaking from the smell." I say, "Maybe. Don't keep your windows open?" She fires back with, "Maybe you should stop being selfish." I just blinked. She was completely serious. Then she says, "I'm going to talk to the landlord if this happens again." I smiled and said, "Tell him I'll save him a plate." Then closed the door. Guess what? I made the same dish again the next day, with extra garlic. Haven't heard from her since. Story 9, entitled, Karen Stands in Parking Spot to Save It, Gets Shut Down. Fast it's a busy Sunday, and I'm circling the packed mall parking lot, looking for a spot. Finally, I see one. But when I pull up, there's a woman in a bright floral dress standing in the space, arms crossed, blocking it. She says, "I'm saving it for my husband." I tell her, "You can't do that." She snaps, "I've been here 10 minutes, find another spot." Now there are cars lining up behind me. People are honking. And she's ranting about her rights to stand in a parking space. I call over a security guard. He shows up, takes one look at the situation, and says she has to move. She starts yelling about her husband's important job and how they need this spot. Just then, her husband pulls up from the far side of the lot and shouts, "Karen, I parked over there." Her face turns red, and she stomps off without another word. I park, with a smile. Lesson of the day: don't stand in parking spaces. It's wild how some people really think the world owes them something. Let's see what happens in this next one. Story 10, entitled, "Coworker insists I change vacation days because her trip is more fun than mine." At my workplace, we have to request vacation time months in advance. Only a limited number of people can be off at the same time. I booked a week off for a family reunion. First time we've all been together in years. Then along comes Karen, who obviously didn't plan ahead. Now she wants the exact same week off for a Cancun trip with her friends. When she finds out I already had that week approved, she actually asked me to cancel mine. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She goes, "Well, it's just a family thing, right? Mine is a real vacation, with more fun than yours. I already told everyone I'm going." I said, "Yeah, and I already booked flights, months ago." She didn't like that. She even tried to guilt trip me in front of our coworkers, saying I was being selfish and ruining her once-in-a-lifetime trip. Side note, she goes on at least 3 vacations a year. When I wouldn't budge, she actually went to our manager to complain. Thankfully, my boss wasn't stupid. They told her flat out, if she wanted that time off so badly, she should have planned ahead. She pouted for days and gave me the cold shoulder. All over vacation days. Story 11. Shopper demanded my employee discount. So I was at Target last weekend, wearing a red hoodie and khakis. Yeah, I know. Rookie mistake. I was just browsing in the electronics section when this woman marched up and said, "Finally, do you people not know how to greet customers anymore?" I looked up, confused, and said, "Oh, sorry, I don't work here." She narrowed her eyes. "You're wearing red and khakis. Don't lie to me. I need help finding a charging cable for my son's iPad." Again, I told her, politely, that I wasn't an employee. Just shopping, she went off. "You young people have no work ethic. If you're too lazy to help customers, you shouldn't work retail." I laughed a little and walked away, thinking that was the end of it. 10 minutes later, I'm in line to check out, and here she comes again. Cart full of stuff. She taps me on the shoulder and says, "If you're not going to help me, the least you can do is use your employee discount." I blinked. "Ma'am, I don't work here. I'm literally buying toilet paper and Cheetos." She rolls her eyes. So selfish. The cashier heard the whole thing and just shook his head. "You wouldn't believe how often this happens," he said. I walked out with my snacks and 0 discount. Meanwhile, she was still arguing with the cashier about what kind of training they do here, retail workers. You have my full respect. I wore the wrong outfit for 1 hour and nearly lost my mind. Story 12. Was left holding the bill by a millionaire I grew up with very little spending money. So this whole situation felt extra strange to me. At the time, I was dating a girl whose best friend happened to be the daughter of the biggest newspaper owner in my area. Calling her rich would be an understatement. We met at her beachfront mansion, right in the heart of Cocoa Beach, to go out for her birthday lunch. Before we made any plans, I made it clear I'd only be paying for myself and my girlfriend. I didn't have much to spend, but I still wanted her to have a nice date. At lunch, everything seemed great. We got separate bills, just like we'd talked about. Everyone was laughing, making plans to go back to her place for a pool party after. That's when it happened. She said she and her friend had left their wallets in the car and would be right back. 30 minutes later, they still weren't back. Just me and my girlfriend, sitting awkwardly as the waiter started hovering. I paid my tab, pizza and 2 drinks, about $35. I even left a tip, brought the total to $50. That was half of what I had on me. I'd only brought $100 in cash, no cards, no debit. I was a cash-only guy at the time, but they ordered 2 appetizers, $15 each, 2 steak entrees, around $50 a plate, drinks, tax, tip. Their total was just under $100, and they were gone. The waiter asked us to move to the bar and wouldn't let us leave until the bill was paid. My girlfriend didn't bring any money either, so the waiter lets her go back to the car to see what's going on. She comes back and says, "Yeah, they left, and they're not answering their phones." They drove us there. I had to call a buddy of mine, Wes, to cover the bill and give us a ride back to their mansion so I could get my truck. Wes was pissed. After dropping me off, he did donuts in their gravel driveway, kicking up rocks onto several high-end vehicles before peeling out. Getting left holding the bill by a stuck-up entitled millionaire? Yeah, that one stung. Story 13. You work from home, so you can watch my kids, right? I had babysat my neighbor's kids once, because I work from home. One morning, she knocks on my door in a rush and asks if I can watch the kids, just for an hour, while she meets her friends. Before I could even respond, she was already in her car. She just left her 2 toddlers in my apartment. I had to call her back and explain I couldn't do it. I was in the middle of a Zoom meeting. Her response? "Well, if you're home anyway, what's the big deal, this?" Big deal is they're not my kids, and I don't run free childcare out of my living room. Story 14. You are an adult. Give my kid your seat. I was on a train, exhausted after work, sitting in a window seat. A woman tapped me on, the shoulder and said, "My son wants the window. You've had your turn." I politely said, "No." She called me selfish and actually tried to get the conductor involved, demanding he make me move. He just shrugged and said, "Seats aren't assigned. Move if you want. Don't if you don't." She walked off, muttering about how rude people are these days. Lady, your entitlement is not my problem. Story 15. Come to this party and wait 3 hours. My husband's family was having a small birthday celebration for 14-year-old twins. The mom requested a special book-themed cake, and I spent about 20 hours making a 6-tier masterpiece. All during the last week of school, while being a busy teacher. We show up with the cake, and the mother says, "Oh, we have to take one of the twins to a dance tryout. The rest of you can just wait." So, we waited. 3 hours, just sitting there. They finally come back, and when they cut the cake, the other twin says, "Never use American buttercream again. It's too sweet." Yeah, I stayed quiet, because it's my husband's family, and I didn't want to start something. The rest of the family just sat there not saying a word, like it was completely normal. But I've made a decision. I'm not making another cake, and I'm not going back there again. To those saying I'm a doormat, sometimes you put up with things for the people you love, because your marriage is more important than their stupid family. Story 16. Spoiled girl on airplane wanted 3 seats. All to herself, I upgraded to an exit row seat for the extra legroom while checking in at the airport. When I got to my seat, there was a girl already sitting in the row, and she looked visibly upset that I was there. She told me she picked that seat because the other 2 in the row were empty, and she wanted to sleep during the 6-hour flight. I lightheartedly said, "Well, if you wanted the whole row to yourself, you probably should have bought 3 tickets. She didn't laugh. Mid-flight, I got up to use the bathroom. I left my jacket and a small bag on my seat. When I came back, my stuff was on the floor, and she was stretched out, sleeping across all 3 seats. Entitlement. At 30,000 feet. Story 17. Your groceries can wait. I need this cashier now. I was in line at the store today, just minding my business, when the woman behind me suddenly tried to cut in front. She said, "I only have a few items. You can wait. I'm in a hurry." I told her no. She huffed, loudly, the entire time I was checking out. Then, when the cashier finished ringing me up, she actually demanded the cashier cancel my transaction so she could go first. Even the cashier laughed. She stormed off, muttering about how we were disrespectful. No, lady, that's not how lines work. Story 18. My aunt tried to rename my nephew. Because his name wasn't biblical enough, my sister just had her baby boy and gave him a name that's simple and sweet. Not trendy, not made up, just a normal name. She and her husband loved. At a family dinner, my aunt suddenly pipes up with, "You didn't pick a name from the Bible?" My sister said, "No, we just picked what felt right." Then my aunt goes, "Well, you should change it. That name has no meaning. You need a strong name from Scripture, like Matthew or Elijah." My sister told her, "The birth certificate's already done." And my aunt actually says, "That name doesn't follow the family tradition. You should respect that." Like she somehow owns the rights to every baby name in the family. We were both stunned, and she's still going on about it, like it's her kid. Story 19. My roommate's mom tried to unpack my stuff and rearrange my room like it was her house, so I just moved into a new place with a couple of roommates, and one of them has this super intense mom. She's one of those "I'm just helping on" types, who actually steamroll right over your boundaries. I was barely a day into moving in, still had unopened boxes, and she shows up to see the new place. 10 minutes in, she's in my room, opening boxes, moving my books, trying to hang up this weird floral curtain she brought, because apparently the window looked bare. I said, "Hey, thanks, but I'll handle my room." She hits me with, "Oh, don't worry, I've decorated plenty of homes. I know what I'm doing." "Ma'am, this is a rented college house. You don't live here. I don't even know you. What makes you think you can touch my stuff?" My roommate just laughed it off like, "Ha ha ha, yeah, she's like that." No, that's not quirky. That's entitled AF. Is this just helpful mom energy? Or is she completely out of line? Would you have said something, or just let it slide? Story 20. Entitled Relative Thought. My BS Marine Transportation degree meant I owed them free cruises. I just graduated with a degree in BS Marine Transportation. First in my family to finish college, worked my butt off, and finally landed my cadetship. At my graduation party, my aunt pulls me aside and says, "So now that you're basically a sailor, when can you get us a free cruise?" I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. She started ranting about how it's only fair, since my mom apparently bragged so much about my career. She even told her kids to start packing for this imaginary cruise I was supposedly arranging, when I told her I'd be working on a cargo vessel. 6 months straight. No ports, no passengers. She looked at me like I'd kicked her dog. She hasn't spoken to me since. And honestly, I'm totally okay with that. Story 21. Can I have your parking spot, please? This happened to my stepdaughter. She just turned 17 this year and had her very first visit to the gynecologist, just to learn the basics for when she starts going to those kinds of appointments. She gets to her appointment, and, As she's locking her car, another woman pulls up and asks, "Are you leaving? Can I have your parking spot, please?" My stepdaughter says, "I'm just locking my car. I have an appointment." The woman then asks, "Well, how long are you going to be?" "I'm in a hurry." My stepdaughter replies, "It's my first time here. I don't know how long I'll be." "I'm sorry. I really need to go so I'm not late." The woman screams, "You little bah, move your fine car. That's my favorite spot." My stepdaughter just kept walking to the door while the woman kept screaming. I'm so proud of her for refusing to engage with someone that entitled. And for those wondering, yes, she memorized the woman's license plate and make of the car. She didn't report it that day, but if this woman tries anything again, she knows exactly what to say. Just a reminder, no one owns a parking spot. And screaming at a teenage girl because you didn't get your favorite spot? That's not urgency. That's entitlement. Story 22. Some random lady at Target told me I couldn't buy the last candle because she saw it first. I'm at Target, just casually browsing the seasonal aisle, when I spot the last fall-scented candle I like pumpkin clove, a total banger. I put it in my cart and keep moving. Suddenly this lady, wearing leopard print leggings and holding a venti Starbucks, runs up to me and goes, excuse me, I was about to grab that candle." I blink. "Oh, sorry, it was just sitting on the shelf, and I picked it up." She goes, "Yeah, but I saw it first. Can you hand it over?" "Babe, what is this? Kindergarten. That's not how stores work. You don't get to mentally claim items like you're Thanos collecting infinity stones." I say, "Sorry, but it's in my cart now." She rolls her eyes and mutters, "Some people have no manners. That candle was meant for me." So I said, "Maybe next time use your hands instead of your eyes, huh?" And I walked away, while she stood there huffing. I enjoyed that candle, with spite in my heart and peace in my soul. Story 23. She told me, I stole her parking aura. I parked outside the gym, public street. No signs, no markings, nothing reserved. As I'm grabbing my gym bag, this woman, probably in her 30s, walks up and says, "You're parked where I usually manifest." I blinked. "Sorry, what?" She goes, "I meditate here before leg day. This is my charging space." I told her, "I'm just here to sweat, not steal your energy." She took a picture of my car and said, "I hope your glutes cramp." And guess what? They did. I'm honestly kinda scared of her now. Story 24. My coworker asked me to give her my bonus because I don't have kids. What should I do? So at first, I just laughed, assuming it was a joke. But she was dead serious. Her reasoning? You don't have responsibilities. You're always spending. You don't need it like I do. And I do the same work anyway. I was caught completely off guard. I literally stood there next to the kettle with my tea bag midair like, what the actual... And the more I thought about it, the worse it felt. It's like she took everything I've ever shared with her. Every casual conversation. Every time I helped her out. And used it to justify why she should get my bonus. This is someone I thought was a friend. I've covered for her so many times. When she had to leave early for childcare, when she needed support during tough moments. I picked up extra work without complaint. Now it just feels like she was waiting for the right moment to see what she could squeeze out of me. It honestly feels manipulative. Borderline bullying even, with how adamant she was. In what world is it okay to ask someone to hand over their bonus? Just because you think they don't need it? I'm torn on what to do. Do I tell my boss? Or do I just keep her at arm's length from now on? Because either way, that friendship? Yeah, I think it's done. Story 25, entitled, Friend of wife wants me to fire someone to hire her, then sabotages a different job interview. Because it's beneath her, this one went from 0 to 100 real quick. Some backstory: I own a small business. Our team? Absolute. Rock stars. These are people who could walk away today and get hired tomorrow. No question. We survived the pandemic with no layoffs, no pay cuts. Well, except mine. And we've stayed 100% work from home ever since. Honestly, ditching our office lease saved us a lot. Everyone on the team has been with us at least 7 years. We're close-knit. Now enter Stacy. She's a friend of my wife's and the kind of person who isn't happy unless she's unhappy. My wife, saint that she is, does her best to cheer her up. Back in December, Stacy requested Christmas week off, just a week before Christmas. Everyone else had already locked in time off, so her request got denied. She quit in protest, thinking it would give her leverage. Instead, they processed her voluntary termination, and that was that. Now it's May. She's been unemployed since. Last Sunday, she came over for one of my wife's wine and crafts nights. We were making small talk in the kitchen, and I asked how her job search was going. She said it was going poorly, then asked me for a job. I didn't mind the ask. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? But I told her we weren't hiring right now. Then she says, "You know I'm a hard worker. Why not just fire someone and hire me?" It took me a second to process that. I explained that our team's been together for almost a decade, and that's just not something I'd ever do. She replies, "You're the owner. You can do anything you want." Yeah. No. I'm a firm believer in leaders eat last. Firing someone just to hire her? That would completely destroy the trust we've built. So I politely backed out of the conversation. Now here's where it gets wild. On Monday, I'm on the phone with a fellow small business owner in town. Let's call him Bob. He mentions he's down a couple of people. I think, well, maybe this could help Stacy out. So I tell Bob just enough about her to pass along a referral. Nothing too personal, not vouching for her. Then I tell my wife, and she relays the info to Stacy. Fast forward to today. Bob calls me. How well? Do you know Stacy? He asks. I give him the best non-answer I can. Honest, but cautious. Then he bursts out laughing. Turns out Stacy's interview lasted less than 45 minutes because she kept trying to interview for positions Bob had already filled. Wouldn't stop talking about how the actual available job was beneath her. I apologized. Bob and I are cool. But wow, did that spiral fast, from asking me to fire one of my loyal employees to blowing up an entirely different opportunity because it wasn't good enough for her. All in under a week. Story 26, entitled, Lady Wanted to Use My Yard. This happened just last summer. And honestly, I'm still baffled. I was sitting on my front porch, scrolling on my phone, when a lady pulled up in this bright teal car, a color you'd definitely remember if you saw it often. I'd never seen her or the car before. She stops, right outside my house, yelling, "Hello," and waving. I look up, clearly confused, and say, "Hello?" She says, "I want to ask you something." Now I'm annoyed. Is this an MLM pitch? Some religious track drop? I just say, "About what?" She gives me a weird look and repeats, "I want to ask you something." I say again, "Okay, about what?" Still no real answer. Just more vague gesturing and, "I don't want to ask from this far away." At this point, red flags are going off. There is no way I'm walking up to some stranger's car. So I tell her she's welcome to get out and come a little closer. She looks irritated but gets out of the car, and then just stands behind her car, basically the same distance away. Then she finally asks, "Does your street get a lot of traffic?" I tell her, "Yeah, a fair bit." thinking maybe she's worried about where she parked. But nope. Her next words? I'm looking for someone to let me use their yard to have a yard sale. I immediately go, no, not here. Everything about her had already rubbed me the wrong way. No way I'm letting some random woman set up camp in my yard for hours. She looked shocked. No? I repeated. Yeah, no, not here. She called me rude and mumbled a bunch of stuff under her breath as she got back in her car and drove off in a huff. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting there like, why? There's literally an empty field at the corner of my street. Just, no, lady, you're not entitled to use my yard for your garage sale. Story 27. I asked an entitled coworker to ask me to move my bag nicely. Instead, she cried, I'm in my early 20s, and I have a coworker. Let's call her B. She's older. Been at the company longer than anyone else on the team. And because of that, she basically acts like she runs the place. She never admits when she's wrong, always tells people what to do, and won't even say, excuse me. If you're in her way, she just barks, move! She even talks to our boss like that. And somehow, she's still employed. What baffles me most is that everyone loves her. Anytime I've complained, I get stuff like, I know she's bossy, but she means, well, or even worse. Don't disrespect her. She has everyone fooled. And the craziest part? She's not even trying to fool them. Then one day, I was grabbing my water bottle from my backpack. B walks over and demands I move my bag. I turn to her and say, in the most respectful but slightly sarcastic tone, hey, crazy concept, but how about treating me with the same respect I treat you with? She ignores it and demands again. So I say more directly, ask nicely, and I kid you not, this woman, who's at least 3 times my age, starts crying, like full-on tears. Someone even came over to hug her. I was so baffled I took a bathroom break just to process what had happened. And no, I didn't move the bag. The thought of swallowing her pride and simply asking nicely drove her to tears. I stopped by HR to report the whole thing. They said they'd have a talk with her. When I came back, she had stuffed my bag into one of the lockers. Now I'm worried about my job. What did she say to the person who comforted her? Could she turn the whole office against me? Maybe even try to get me fired? All because I'm the only one who called her out instead of kissing her yellow toenailed feet. At least while not exactly helpful, my supervisors did tell me I have the right to stand up for myself. So, fingers crossed. Story 28. Entitled, Passenger Wanted My Window Seat. Got passive-aggressive. When I said no, I was on a 5-hour flight and had specifically booked a window seat months ago. I love watching the view and leaning against the wall to nap. It's my go-to. A woman boards with her teenage son and asks if I'd switch seats so he could enjoy the view. I politely said, sorry, I'd prefer to keep my seat. She immediately snaps, wow, it's just a seat. Don't be difficult. I smiled and said, exactly, it's my seat. She let out this huge, exaggerated sigh, sat down next to me, and then spent the entire flight elbowing into my armrest and dramatically texting. Screen brightness cranked to full. I get wanting to sit together. I really do. But how is me planning ahead and booking my seat early suddenly considered rude? Story 29. So, when are you opening your pool this year? Ever since one entitled neighbor had her family trespass on our property last year, my husband and I have been pretty quiet about when we plan to open the pool. We only tell people we actually trust. And yes, for anyone wondering, we do have security cameras pointed around the yard, especially at the pool. Anyway, yesterday my husband was at the store picking up supplies to start prepping the pool. One of the neighbors saw him and asked, so when are you opening the pool this year? My husband said, don't have a set date. After what happened last year, we might keep it family only. If we plan anything for a gathering, we'll let people know. Suddenly, the brother of that same entitled neighbor, who happened to be shopping nearby, jumped in and got all huffy. You and your wife are so selfish. The people who lived in that house before used to let the neighborhood come swim, just had to watch our kids. My husband calmly replied, "Look, we've had an uptick in wild animals crossing through the property. That's why we put a fence around the pool. And it's our private property. We don't have to have people over, especially if we're not home." Then he left. I'm not sure why the brother is suddenly acting entitled now too. But honestly, that kind of attitude is exactly what got his sister in trouble last year. Some people really just don't learn. Story 30, entitled, Lady Demands I Turn Over My Cart. During checkout, I was at the grocery store checking out. Had a full cart, weekly groceries, bulk items, party supplies for a little get-together. I'm literally halfway through checking, out when this woman walks up behind me. Empty-handed, just giving me the stink eye for no reason. Then she pats me on the back and says, "I need your cart." I figured she meant when I was done, so I said, "Oh, all right. I'm still using it though." But she goes, "No, I need it now. I'm in a hurry and don't have time to go find one. I'm trying to catch up with something." I'm standing there speechless like, "Ma'am, I'm literally using it right now." She puffs out her chest and says, "Then take out your stuff. You can just carry it or use baskets. I only have a few things to get." The cashier is staring. People are piling up behind me. It's getting awkward. I just said, "No, I'm not unpacking $200 worth of groceries because you don't feel like walking 10 feet to get a cart." She muttered something about people not helping each other anymore and stormed off, and the kicker? As she left, she wheeled a cart from right near the entrance, meaning she walked past them just to come bother me in the middle of checkout. Unreal. 31, entitled, Cousin Demands I Give Her My Car because I don't need it as much as she does. So I'm 25, and I've got an old 2012 Civic. Not flashy. Not fast, just reliable, paid off, and mine. Had it since college. She's been through it with me. A couple dings, sure, but I keep her well maintained and she still runs great. Out of the blue, my cousin, she's 23, texts me. She just got her license, yes, at 23, and asks what kind of car I drive. I tell her. She replies, "Oh, that's perfect for me. Can I buy it off you?" I said, "It's not for sale." Then she hits me with, "Okay, well, could you just give it to me? You have a job and live downtown, so you don't even need a car." I've been praying for help, and I feel like this is God telling me this is the right thing. Excuse me? You think God told you to ask for my car? You think I've just been sitting around waiting for divine intervention to hand over my only vehicle because you decided it's your time to drive? I told her no. Again. And she immediately started guilt-tripping me. "You're being really selfish. I'm trying to get my life together and this would help me so much. You have no idea how hard it is." I reminded her that I worked 2 jobs. In college. Ate ramen for a year just to afford that car. She left me on red, then told the whole family I was hoarding resources. LMAO. It's a Civic, not a Rolls Royce. Story 32. Hey, I'm rich, but can I use your goats for free? I'm doing you a favor. I have a small ranch out in California. Used to run a brush clearing business using goats. Haven't done it in years. These days, I just have 2 elderly mini goats. That's it. Yesterday, I got an email from someone I've known since high school. We're both in our 60s now. She lives overseas, but also has a massive house in Malibu with tons of land. She comes from an old, well-known California family, inherited millions. She's never wanted for anything in her life. The email said she was in town dealing with damage from recent fires on her Malibu property. And then, just casually, she asked if I could bring my goats over to munch on the brush on her land. No. Greeting. No. Hey, how have you been? Nothing. No mention of pay. No real explanation. Just a tone that made it sound like she was doing me a favor by asking. Now, that would involve me hauling 2 old goats to Malibu, overseeing them on her property, and then hauling them back and forth, probably over multiple days, all for free. I told her my goats were too old, and that I didn't do that kind of work anymore. Explained it's a whole operation, not a casual favor, no apology, no understanding. Instead, she just got miffed and asked if I knew anyone else who could do it, presumably also for free. I told her I didn't know anyone. Truth is, I do, but I wouldn't subject them to her. She just said thanks, and that was it. No, let's get together while I'm in town. No. It would be nice to catch up. Just let me use your goats for free. Why won't you do that for me? This is the same woman who, years ago, imposed herself on a dying mutual friend, staying at her house, draining the family's time and energy to the point they had to ask her to leave. Because of that, I had to cancel a long-planned trip to say goodbye to that friend before she passed. My best friend died without seeing me because of this woman's entitlement. And at the funeral, only family were supposed to speak. But Malibu Lady wrote a 3-page speech and tried to head up to the podium. That's when the brother of the deceased finally had enough. He stood up, grabbed her by the arm, and dragged her back to her seat, furious, so honestly. I shouldn't be surprised. But no matter how many times I see it, the sheer entitlement of some people born into money never fails to shock me. Story 33. Neighbor thinks I'm here to serve them. So many interactions with this a-hole. Neighbor. But this one just came up again, so I figured I'd share. I'm a lazy guy in the best way possible. If I have to do something over and over, I find an easier way to do it. Dragging garbage cans out to the street every week? Yeah, I got tired of that. Couldn't find a cart sturdy enough, so I built my own. Used some angle iron, lumber, and never flat tires. Side note, totally worth the extra money. So it's garbage day, and my cart's out on the street. Entitled, Neighbor walks over and asks where I got it. I say I made it. He goes, make me one. Not asks, demands. Mind you, I've talked to this guy maybe once a year over the past decade. And now he thinks I should just make him one? That's half a day's work and about $50 in materials. No offer to help. No offer to pay. No interest in learning to make his own. Just make me one. I told him no, of course. He walks away muttering about how I'm the inconsiderate one. Blah, blah, blah. This is the same guy who will mow right along the property. Line every single time people are over, just to make a scene. Typical jerk energy. Story 34. Give me that for free. So a friend of mine moved into a new place about a month ago. He unpacked, got settled, and everything was going fine. Until his neighbor came knocking. This woman didn't ask for anything. She demanded his Wi-Fi password. Apparently, the previous tenant had left their Wi-Fi wide open with no password protection. And now she just expected to keep using someone else's internet for free. If she had asked nicely, maybe he would have considered it. But nope. She came in hot with that entitled energy, so he declined. Then, get this, she actually complained to housing management, demanding they force him to share his Wi-Fi with her. Management said no, obviously, and let him know what happened. Since then, she hasn't spoken to him once. Honestly, I swear, the entitlement is getting out of hand. Story 35. You work from home so you can help me. Anytime. Nope, that's not how freelancing works. Hi again. I work full-time as a freelance graphic designer from home. I love what I do. I have great clients. I get to set my own schedule. But one thing that never stops is people being entitled about my time just because I work from home. This week, I was buried in a major client project. Full branding package, logo, social templates, product mock-ups, the kind of job that pays my bills for the month. Friday comes around. I'm deep in Illustrator, headphones on. Doorbell rings, I ignore it. It rings again, and again. Then I get a text. I can see your car. I know you're home. It's a woman from my church. I finally answer the door, and she immediately launches into a rant. Her teenage daughter needs help designing a flyer for a school club, for free. She wants me to just whip something up real quick since No, I do this stuff all day anyway. I told her, very politely, that I was in the middle of a big project and didn't have time, but I'd be happy to send her some free Canva templates she could use. She shudders, then says, "You work from home. It's not like you have a real job. You can take a break whenever you want." I blinked. Then I said again, "This is my real job, and I don't do unpaid work, especially on a deadline." She rolled her eyes and said, "Wow, I didn't know helping a church member was too much to ask. Must feel nice to be so selfish." She stormed off, and I honestly laughed out loud. In my head, I'm thinking, helping a church member, plus doing free professional work, on demand, on a deadline, because they feel entitled to my time? Got it. No idea if her daughter ever got that flyer, but I'll be seeing her in church tomorrow. Story 36. Woman at the gym. Needed to get ready for work. My gym locker room has 4 little vanity areas, plus 10 sinks with plenty of counter space, and a hairdryer at each one. All 4 vanities were being used, but only one of the sinks was occupied. I was at one of the vanities, getting ready for work, just like everyone else. An older woman walked up to me and asked, "Can you please move? I need to get ready for work." I looked at her and simply said, "Me too," and I kept going. Story 37. Entitled Passenger on Plane. Shocking, eh? My wife and I were flying from Santorini to Paris on Transavia, basically the Spirit Airlines of Europe, a budget subsidiary of Air France. We'd paid extra for exit row seats, mainly for the legroom. It also allowed early group boarding, but my wife needed the bathroom, so we boarded a bit later. No big deal, right? Our seats were reserved. Wrong. We get on board, and there's a woman, another American, already sitting in my aisle seat in the exit row. I tell her politely, "That's my seat." She doesn't even look up, just says, "Can't you just sit across the aisle? That one's empty." I said politely but firmly, "No." At this point, the plane is about 75% boarded, and we're holding up people trying to get by. I step aside to let others pass, and she's still sitting there like this is somehow up for debate. After about 10 more seconds, I lose my patience. Loud, enough to snap her out of it, I say, "Get out of my effing seat or I'll have the flight attendant do it." She finally looks up, startled, and says, "Fine, but you don't need to be rude." All huffy, puffed up, I shot back, "I wasn't, until you decided to be an entitled a-hole." And she walked, all the way to the second to last row of the plane. And yes, by the time boarding finished, the plane was about 95% full. Every single exit row seat, occupied. Just another day in the sky. Story 38. My fiancé's entitled sister tried to force her way into my bridal party, and then tried to replan our entire wedding. So something happened during my wedding, and I had to share it here. My fiancé and I planned a small, intimate wedding. Just our closest friends and family, nothing too over the top. For my bridal party, I chose people I've been close to for years. My best friend, my sister, and 2 Cousins, that's it. We didn't include Lena, my fiancé's sister. Not out of malice. She lives out of state, we barely talk. And honestly, she's known for being dramatic and making everything about herself. But when the invites went out, I got a long, angry message from her. Wait, I'm not a bridesmaid? I just assumed I was. I already bought a dress for the wedding, and everything. I responded kindly and explained. It's a small bridal party, just people I've been close to for a long time. She replied, I'm literally your future sister-in-law. That automatically makes me one. You can't exclude family like that. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Lena took it upon herself to insert herself into the planning. She made a group chat with my actual bridesmaids, without me, and started planning a bachelorette weekend in Las Vegas. For context, I don't drink. I hate clubs. I had already made plans for a relaxing cabin weekend with my girls. She never even asked what I wanted. Then she sent me a PowerPoint presentation titled, Elevating Your Wedding, Lena's Aesthetic Suggestions. She wanted to change our entire color scheme. The sage green dresses I picked washed her out. She wanted burgundy and gold for a more luxurious vibe. Spoiler, I'm wearing ivory lace in a garden ceremony. It would have clashed horrifically. That was the final straw. I called her and said, Lena, you are not in the bridal party. You're welcome to attend, but you need to stop trying to take over. This isn't your wedding. She got defensive. Wow, so now I'm just some outsider? I'm trying to help make your wedding less basic. You clearly don't know how these things work. I stayed calm. No, I do know what I want. I'm not asking for your approval, and you are not going to disrespect my boundaries. Fast forward to the wedding day. Lena shows up in a long, dramatic black sequin dress, totally out of place. She even tried to line up with the bridesmaids before the ceremony. I had to personally stop her. Told her to go sit down. She was not walking in with the bridal party. She spent the whole night sulking at her table, telling anyone who would listen that I was controlling, jealous of her confidence, and trying to push her out of the family. No, Lena, you were never supposed to be the main character at my wedding. Story 39. My coworker told HR I was too negative. After my dog died a couple months ago, my dog passed away unexpectedly. She'd been with me through everything. College, my first job, breakups. She was my constant. So, yeah, I was a mess for a bit, but I still showed up to work. I still got things done. I just wasn't Miss Sunshine for a few days, didn't chat much, skipped the dumb office memes, kept to myself, powered through. Then one day, HR calls me in. They tell me someone anonymously reported me for being unapproachable and negative. Like, what? I wasn't yelling. I wasn't slamming things. I was just quiet. Sorry I'm not laughing at TikToks while I'm grieving. Later, I found out who it was. Some guy I barely talked to. He said he felt uncomfortable around me because I seemed cold. What the actual hell? People need to realize not everything is about them. You are not entitled to someone else's emotional energy, especially when they're just trying to survive something. What is wrong with these people? Story 40. Entitled Fan Thought. She was entitled to my photo op at Comic-Con because she missed her chance. This happened a few years ago at a Comic-Con. I attended with my husband. We had a photo op booked, and during a lunch break, we were chatting with a few other fans who also had tickets for the same session. Then this woman walks by, overhears us, and asks if she can buy one of our photo ops because she missed her chance before they sold out. We all politely said we weren't selling. She laughs, then suddenly gets angry and snaps, "Look, I'm entitled to that photo op just as much as any of you. Now who's going to sell me theirs?" I stood up and told her, You are most definitely not entitled to buy anything from us. We're not selling, and we're not a booth you can bargain with. Right then, a passing staff member comes over and asks what's going on. This woman, without missing a beat, claims that I stole her photo op ticket. My husband stepped in and said, "We absolutely did not." The staffer asked to see the ticket in question, so I handed mine over. He checked the email address on the ticket and had both me and this woman whisper our email addresses to him to confirm. I gave the correct one. He handed the ticket back to me and then escorted her out. So yeah, entitled or not, trying to lie your way into someone else's photo op. Not the best con strategy.
And that's all for tonight's stories. If you're still with me, I hope you're feeling a little more relaxed, maybe even ready to drift off. It's always wild hearing what some people think they're entitled to, but I think it reminds us just how important kindness and boundaries really are. If any of these stories stood out to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Which one made you shake your head the most? And if you enjoyed spending this time with me, feel free to give the video a like or hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I've got plenty more stories coming your way. Sleep well, take care, and I'll see you next time.